carrying some speed with a little bit of aero, and coming on out. It's all like this. I got a cat. Oh my God, there's a cat. Thing just like teleport out. We see lap traffic right there. That car was barely moving, and we were doing about 170 miles an hour. What's up, people? So today I've got a very interesting new series. We're gonna do a simulator, a high-end simulator, and then record it with voiceover, and then compare it directly to actual GoPro footage for me racing at the same track in an almost identical race car. And what I'm doing this purpose for all the young people out there that are really into simulators and wanting to become a better driver, and they want to know how that relates to real life and how to translate it. What's the same, what's different, what are the pros, what are the cons? How do you balance all these things, you know, real life and simulators to be the best possible driver? And so I wanted to do this. So I had an opportunity. A buddy of mine, Andrew, cool car guy into bikes too. He's got an awesome simulator all set up, and it's not even in his mom's basement. Good job, Andrew. Okay. Anyway, maybe he'll let us get out his car sometime in the future. You guys will really like it. So I'll leave that as a surprise. But I'm old now, and the racing simulators I grew up with were like 8-bit Rad Racer. And it was really cool because if you push the select button, it went 3D, but I wasn't smart enough to do that when I was a little kid. So I don't get the opportunity to do simulators very often. I get to be a little bit new for you guys, and I think that'll be helpful because I get to have a fresh perspective on both. So today, we're gonna run a prototype car, V8, open cockpit, right-hand drive, aerodynamics, and the simulator's set up to do that at Mid-Ohio on the pro course. Okay, cool. So, okay, what do we have here? I got an Oculus Rift, that's right? VR headset, and then this is iRacing?
Yes.
For everybody that wants to know? And then what's the steering wheel and all this stuff?
I dig it.
Okay, so AccuForce hardware here. Okay, cool. iRacing, Oculus Rift. Let's rock. All right, so here we are. Pit lane in Mid-Ohio. We're toward the end. There's that guy. There's people over there. Carbon fiber. Looks kind of real. Okay, I'm gonna get loud like an old man. The thing's recording. Everything's good? All right, cool. All right, guys, so obviously you can see around, look at my junk, awesome, carbon fiber, it's right-hand drive like the real one. The real car is gonna be actual stick shift, 3-pedal, this is 3-pedal in the simulator, but it's got paddles. And so, in this simulator I can flat shift, meaning with my foot anywhere, throttle position, I don't have to let off. So, let's give it a go. All right, here we go. Pit out of Mid-Ohio. We got first gear here. Just click it in a second. I'm just gonna do this like real. So make sure I get a little scrub on these tires. It's hard figuring out the braking zones. What are you doing here? That was weird. Let's see if I can get through faster in third gear. I don't know. Nope. It is weird because you want to like find the speed and test the speed, but I don't know where the arrow is. So I'm having to rely on visual acuity, like where are my points in the simulator versus real. I get the sense of time and G-forces. So that's a big difference. So in the simulator, it's really important. I'm finding you got to watch. It's all visual acuity and like time differential from when things move and change. So I really got to pay attention, really got to memorize those gear changes and see if I'm in the gear that puts me where I need to be to carry the speed and be in the power band. I mean, that's just the same as real life, but here I really got to look out for things. I mean, it's great. Look at the guys at Thunder Valley, coming up the hill really close to the wall, carrying some speed with a little bit of aero and coming on out. It's all like this. I got a cat. Oh my God, there's a cat. Oh my dear Lord. I think that was a cat. Andrew, get your pussy off of me. What up? All right. So I'm looking in, trying to get an apex. Yeah, better. I got no air. All right, here we go. Down to second. Can I get in there? Yes, much better. Too early. All right. So here in Mid-Ohio, you know, it feels fast, it feels real. Like, I feel like I can sense this car having aero.
I don't know if it's getting lower, but you know, you can feel like the engine dragging at higher speed because of the aero, so that's cool. And you know, I get a sense of the motion and the flow. It's just disconnected because I'm not under like extreme heat and G-forces. This is also a test session, so I'm not worried about anybody else, and I'm not concerned about any physical harm to myself or the car. There's literally zero consequences right now. So very similar. So we're gonna go into the pits. And usually, you know, in a race car, I'd be sweating my face off because Nomex, it does not breathe much. Cool. All right, guys, so that was Mid-Ohio in a prototype car. I am not practiced at, oop, I stalled it. How do you put it in neutral? Oh, like that. I was thinking it was like a Ferrari. What do you want? What? I'm not coming up. I stalled it. I suck. Stop looking at me, virtual guy. Okay. Andrew, where are you at? Okay. All right, you guys. Well, that was fun. And biggest thing I took away from that is it gets your reflexes up. It gets your visual acuity going really well for a track you're going to go into at the same speed and feel of a real car. And I think a huge benefit just from this, and we'll talk about after seeing the footage and my voiceover on the real car, comparing the two. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is learning a new track and finding its idiosyncrasies, working on the line, maximizing all those places so that when you go there in a real car and your time is worth way more money with much higher consequences, then you can already start maximizing it. So let's give that a try. So I'm sweating a little. It's probably like 72 degrees in here. I'm in my socky feet and I have no consequences, but it was fun. Okay, let's do the real car now. All right, guys, so that was the simulator, and now it is time to review the actual race cockpit footage. But before I go into that, let's set the stage here. This was a couple years ago in our Genius Garage V8 prototype car. It's open cockpit, right-hand drive, just like the car we just did in the simulator. A big difference here is it's not paddle shifted, it actually has an H pattern. The transaxle on this car came out of a late 1980s March IndyCar transaxle, which is perfectly suitable for this 90s prototype. But it's worthwhile to mention that, of course, it's a dog box. So if you match the RPMs properly and do it quickly without an error, you can shift without the clutch. So, but that takes skill and you don't get a second chance at it. You got to do it right. The Chevrolet 700 horsepower V8 that it was in it actually makes a lot more torque than what that transaxle was designed for. So while the transaxle can handle the horsepower specs and everything like that, you do have the opportunity to completely destroy the transaxle with a missed shift. So we're getting into the realm of how it's different. But I wanted to mention that. Keep in mind, watch for the dog pattern. I believe the downshifts were clutched, single clutch, snicked it into gear, and you're braking so fast that you didn't hardly need to blip it. So it's hard right foot braking, tiny little blip with the right foot, single clutch, snicking it down, the gears there. And then the upshifts are without the clutch, but that has to be matched perfectly. And keep in mind, while we're driving, you are at risk. This is real. So let's get started. We're going to do 2 laps at Mid-Ohio, then come off the track, and it's going to start just after Thunder Valley into the carousel. Currently, we are leading the race for all of the prototype cars, and one car is ahead of us. That is a very fast Formula 5000 car from the late 70s, which, interestingly enough, is a similar speed to our 90s prototype, and it'll make it for a little more interesting. But here we go. Ready? All right. So we're in the carousel, and we're about to hit the start-finish line. Mid-Ohio. So we are at the apex. You can watch. You felt that hard bump. You can see the helmet shaking around from the air. Your head is perfectly in the airstream. There is nothing in front of your face whatsoever. If a tire comes off, if a bolt, it's going to hit you square in the face. So that's, you know, there is a risk here. Here's some lap traffic we're coming blazing up on. You'll notice that we're actually using the keyhole here at Mid-Ohio, so a little extra. But you see the movements of the steering wheel and having to actually take your hand off to shift and make that perfectly. Of course, it's got a liquid crystal display dash like the simulator. And I think you guys are already noticing the simulator was spot on in terms of everything you can see. But here is the greatest difference between a simulator and a real car. And this is where they do not compare, and a simulator is not a substitute. In a real car in real racing, all of these G-forces are felt by the body. You see the quick correcting of the steering wheel and the hands like that?
All this is felt through your entire body, so-called seat of the pants as people put that, including all of the sounds of the car. If something is odd with the suspension, the way the brakes are, all those low frequency sounds that transmit through the chassis go to your body and you feel that. And those are all the senses. Those senses and sensing G-forces is actually more important than your eyes. I'm not kidding. That's how a driver puts it on the edge. It's not by eyes, it's by all of those feelings in connection with the car, feeling the pavement and all that. In a simulator, it's done totally via visual acuity and seeing all those points. Your eyes, when you're actually in a racing car, are to pick up those points, but to help get you in the right spot, gather information, and go into that seat of the pants when you're being a car, so that's the difference. Also, it's incredibly hot in there. You may say it's open cockpit, you got wind moving, you don't. You have a full face helmet, a balaclava, a suit, and Nomex. Nomex insulates you from fire, but it also insulates you from cooling down. Currently, heart rate, and look at that, we're right up on that Formula 5000 car, about getting in there. I don't know why he was slow in the corner. Maybe he was having a fuel injection issue, and then that thing just like teleported out. We see lap traffic right there. That car was barely moving, and we were doing about 170 miles an hour. If I was off a few feet right there and not looking way ahead, I gotta be honest, that may have been the last move I ever made. So keep in mind, that's the big difference. And right now we're right on that car. The tiniest move, you got thousands of people watching you and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars or even more damage depending on what you're doing. So it matters. That's a huge difference. There's obviously something at risk. It's very hot. Heart rate, probably 165 beats a minute for a fit person. And a lot going on. And even something can break. So you're right up by that wall like we did in the simulator, coming through here with a little bit of aero, rocketing through, sliding around maybe a little bit. Here and that, snicking it down into, I think that's third gear actually right there, coming in for an apex. We're coming out. There's the dip and bump at Mid-Ohio, so you got to tune the suspension out of that, but you've got to feel it. You've got to know it as a driver. So that was 2 laps at Mid-Ohio. That was actually the end of the race. You can see waving to the guys there. But we're coming into the pits now, kind of fast forward there. But this is where a driver is so important. You see, if you're a simulator driver, you can be good at that. Okay, but it's visual acuity. Even if you've got a force feedback seat, that's not the same. It's not the same at all. It just isn't. It makes it more fun. And if you want to be in a true simulating type movement, I mean, that's something like the Dallara factory or Ferrari would have for Formula 1 drivers. And even that is not a substitute for real life. It's just better. But this is very hot. It's brutal. It's got to be right. And there's a lot on the line. That's the difference for the real thing. And in a moment, when I'm done watching this, we're going to talk about comparing that and what the big takeaway is. Because here it is coming off the track. You even got to be careful there, not hitting people. But of course, you got your team. Hopefully they're excited, and you guys did something great together. Remember, racing is a team sport. Anyway, okay, so now that that is over, let's talk about simulators and driving for you. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope you're enjoying seeing that back to back. If you do, please like this, share it, let's blow it up. And I'll do more. Got a bunch of the great footage and we'll make it even better. But, you know, simulators are a heck of a lot of fun and people are using them. Obviously, nowadays our computers are spectacular. We've got full immersion, virtual reality. We can give some motion. And, you know, everybody from Formula 1 car drivers to IndyCar uses a simulator as a tool to be better. So, you know, it goes without saying that when you're in a simulator, you're risking absolutely nothing. The simulator I was in, I was with Andrew and I had my socks on. It was 72 degrees in there. I sweated a little bit underneath the VR. I don't know what my heart rate was, but it certainly wasn't the 165 or whatever beats a minute you might have in a real race car. And I had no risk. Andrew's cat was trying to come see me and play with me. So keep that in mind. It's a lot of fun, but it doesn't, you know, it's nothing necessary to write home about. Simulators today are getting incredible. Obviously, there's races held around the world, so you can race against professional drivers. And in iRacing and whatnot, your record matters. If you do things wrong, that'll screw it up. So you have to care about it, just like you would a real car. Because you can put all this time in, you can screw it up in one race. So that's similar too, of course. But the biggest thing that I see is the difference between a simulator and real life racing is the nature of how you, as an individual, and the body senses the speed to be good at it. In a simulator, it's all visual acuity. You got to get your points, you got to see it, you got to anticipate. Your brain has to effectively create a kinetic map of what's happening and make that world to relate it to reality to do it. And in that way, because I'm a person that does cars and karting and motorcycles and things more real life and then does a simulator once in a while, When I first get in a simulator, especially if it's VR, for a half of a lap, it makes me nauseous. And the reason being is if you accelerate or hit the brakes or get on it, my mind is so immersed in this virtual world that's just like, real life, that my brain is expecting the G-forces to happen. And when I turn a brake and suddenly they don't happen, that's the disconnect between your mind and your senses. It makes you nauseous. Same thing that happens on a boat for people that get seasick. So that happens for a moment, and then I just have to recalibrate my brain for it. And in that note, that's also why a simulator is not a substitute for real life. The simulator, actually I probably should have used Andrew's simulator or any other one before you go to a new track. For instance, this past year we went to Road America with Genius Garage, and I hadn't been there in 10 years. And I remember where the track went, but frankly, if I had done a simulator and I picked up points and I got an idea where braking zones were and I get a lay of the land, I bet you I would have been faster, or at the very least had been going faster quicker and needed less laps to do so. So that's I think the biggest value for a simulator to real life. Getting immersed, getting it, knowing those razor edges and such. Of course you can set it up, you can do a lot of things like that, but also not a substitute for real life. So for all you young people out there that want to become a racing driver, whether that's a hobby or maybe you have a dream that someday that could happen professionally, but watch my other videos because that's not the way everybody wants to think it is, or everybody's trying to make you believe it is. Anyway, if you want to be an amazing race car driver, how do you do that? Well, my suggestion is simulators are great things. You can drive a lot of different cars, a lot of different tracks. You can find where it matters. You can get used to running races, the starts, the finishes, every little thing. You can see how people screwed up and how it can go really wrong. Take it serious, but always enjoy it and do it regularly, and that's going to be great. But you absolutely have to do things in the real world if you're going to be a real race car driver. I don't care if you're the best simulator driver in the world. If you haven't done anything in real life and you want to go up against a driver in real life, I'm going to put my money on the real life driver. Because first of all, that person has never done anything dangerous. So unless they're totally disconnected from the real world, there's potentially going to scare them. Heat, pressure, nasty things that could happen at any moment. Does that person have the grit to see that through? It's kind of like, you can do Nintendo Wii boxing, but have you ever been in a street fight? Or have you ever boxed for real and got punched square in the face because you screwed up? Real racing's a little bit like that. You need to be okay with getting punched in the face a few times and it being really, really, really hard and keeping your mind in tune with that. So the best way for you to do that on the cheap is kart racing. I've done videos on this, you guys. Kart racing. Don't just go grab your street car, tilting at windmills, trying to go out on the road race track. Because first of all, it's not going to be that fast. You're going to beat up your street car and you're not going to learn as much. You need to go kart racing. The G-forces are higher, the races are tighter. It's going to make you amazing. You can be sideways. It's like, of course, there's some risk, but it's reasonably safe, but it's hard. It's hard. So all those lessons you have to learn about real life sport and grit and the real world and difficulty and being a mechanic and setting up your vehicle in the real world, not just a simulation where something could break or something could be different or it's going to rain or the humidity changes. All those things will translate to real life. And kart racing is vastly less expensive than any kind of car racing. So even somebody with a part-time job or saving up or restoring bicycles to fix and sell can afford a kart if you put your mind to it, okay? Of course, if there's just no way on earth you can do that, then simulator's nice and maybe you'll have a lot of fun. You can do it as a hobby and race in that, and that's totally cool. But simulators are simulating the real world, so shouldn't we want to go outside and have fun and do it for real? As a note on that, I do have to point out, and not to be a downer, but I'm older now, I'm 38 years old, okay? And when I was a little kid, Nintendo 8-bit came out. So you can kind of imagine I've seen the progression of simulators and video games from basically the beginning. And where I'm going with this is I got a lot of friends that I grew up with that were super into cars. Except they spent all their time playing the video games and simulations. And I went out in the garage building stuff and doing it that way. Well, those friends are still playing the video games and simulations. And I do this for real and teach and have cool cars. So you can extrapolate or interpolate those points on your own. I just wanted to make it. Simulators should be to make you a better driver, but if you want to use them as a hobby to connect with your friends that are further away and race, that's cool too. But just remember that a simulator, especially one you may have at home, even if it's got a chair that moves and stuff, is not a substitution for real life. You've got to do things in real life. You got to have car control skills. You got to be something of a mechanic, because otherwise you can't be mechanically sympathetic with the car. If you don't understand how the car works, the suspension, the tires, and the interrelation of tire pressure to rebound dampening and high speed this and gear ratios and stuff, and I don't mean changing it in a video game or simulator, I mean like real life, then you're not going to be an ideal race car driver. And that's just it. The other thing about simulators is the industry wants to sell you a simulator. So what do you think they're going to tell you? It's a substitute. It's going to make you a great race car driver. Just spend $5,000 or $50,000 or $500 and get our game, simulator, whatever, and you can do this in real life. And they're going to sell it as the best thing since like sliced bread. I don't know when that happened, but and a lot of good things have happened. Like we've probably gone to the moon since then. So let's just not say that anymore. But you see where I'm going with this? Simulators are not a substitution for real life. They're not. I don't care what it is in racing and such. It's a great tool. It's a lot of fun. You can use it to become a better race driver. In fact, a guy I know, really neat guy, Kelly Jones, does Racecraft 1 out of Indianapolis and uses that to train race car drivers and make them better. He's actually an F-16 ex-military pilot and uses this acuity with that in conjunction with what they're doing in real life, as well as physical fitness to keep the mind disciplined and all. So that is a perfect use of that tool. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this put a little clarity on it. I've got nothing against simulators. I think they're a great tool to get better, and I think they're a lot of fun. But don't think of them as this end-all be-all substitute, because it's really just not the case. You still got to get out there. You got to race. You got to be physically fit. You got to do sports stuff for real. And kart racing is the best place for that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you'd like me to do another one or how I can make it better or more fun. And in the meantime, I hope you will like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time.